Welcome into our ESPN FC studios. My name is Kevin Egan alongside Craig Burley, Don Hutchison and Frank Leboeuf. A brilliant day of World Cup action.
It's midnight.
Let's go. It's World Cup time. We're excited to be here. Three cracking games to get stuck into from today then.
You had an espresso at 9.
I did. It was all Frank Leboeuf's.
You're welcome, my dear.
The World Cup is shaping up here now in the round of 32. This is how the bracket looks. 4 nations have booked their place in the round of 16. We saw Canada advance yesterday. Tonight it was drama-filled as Morocco booked their ticket. Earlier on, Brazil edging past Japan. And what about the Germans? Ousted by Paraguay. In this game today, it was a brilliant move to open the scoring for Paraguay. Great play involving Miguel Almiron, Galarza and then Enciso with the finish. But then Germany would get back in and Havertz with the goal. This one was ruled out 102 minutes on the clock in extra time. The goal would not count for Jonathan Tah. And then we'd go to penalties. Germany had a chance to wrap it up. Excellent work from Manuel Neuer in goal for them, but it wasn't to be as Paraguay. And here they are in the streets of Asuncion, celebrating here in style. Germany falling on penalties for the first time ever in World Cup history. And as you can see here, since winning the World Cup, it's been poor. This is their record on penalty shootouts here. Usually it's what, death, taxes, Germany winning on penalties? Not so much anymore. First loss on penalties since 1976. I've welcomed in the lads here in studio, and now it's our pleasure to welcome in a World Cup champion in Jürgen Klinsmann. Jürgen, how do you sum up that devastating defeat today for Germany?
Well, obviously it's a very sad day for all of us in Germany because we didn't expect going out in the round of 32. And the way we went out, I think, is hugely disappointing. You know, it seemed like that the team was not prepared to take control of matters during the 120 minutes. They were not, energetic enough, decisive enough, aggressive enough to win this battle with a very strong Paraguayan team, which we knew it's going to be a difficult game. And then it looked really, at the very end, it looked like they were not prepared for penalty shootout, which is for us insane because we love penalty shootouts usually. And the way we went out tonight is devastating. It's an embarrassment. Is something that nobody expected. And it's pretty much as horrible as the exits were in Qatar 4 years ago and in Russia 8 years ago. So this takes Germany into a huge hole, and everything from the top to the bottom needs to be questioned, needs to be discussed, and obviously there will be consequences to it, you know, whatever those consequences are. But what really kind of shocked me was the lack of urgency. There was no urgency because if I know that Paraguay will defend 80-90% of the game and they will drag it out to penalty shootouts, they will give everything they have and they maybe hurt you on a counter break, which they did, you know, then I have to, you know, play with far more urgency. And it's knockout. The knockout phase is a completely different ball game. Knockout phase is do or die. And you know that. I mean, it's not a secret. And the way they really kind of executed their game plan, whatever game plan it was just sloppy. It was just no urgency. It was just, I got to get desperate the last half an hour. If I don't get desperate the last half an hour in the normal, regular time, I get desperate in the 30 minutes of extra time. And then I do things that maybe I don't do usually. You know, I do fouls. I jump at players. I argue with everybody. But I do something in order to demonstrate urgency, and that was not the case for this German side.
How much of the blame, Jürgen, falls on Julian Nagelsmann?
Really a big disappointment. I mean, it falls on everybody, from the coaching staff to the federation to every single player that was called into this 26-man roster. Everyone is part of this disaster. I call it a disaster, and they have to admit it, and they have to, you got to live with that. And I know, I mean, we talked often about it before the tournament. You know, what are the expectations for Germany? Well, as a 4-time World Cup champion, the expectations are winning the World Cup. And if you don't reach at least the semi-final, it's a disappointment. You know, I remember I reached only the quarterfinals in 94 and 98 after we won it in 90. And I was hiding for 3 months afterwards because we just felt like we lost our faces. And this team definitely lost its face. I mean, they will get obviously scrutinized by the media, by the fans, by everyone, but the guilt is on everybody.
It is embarrassing. And it was a bad performance. But I don't think it was a big surprise, really. But I sat in this studio a couple of weeks ago, and there was a certain individual who was a little bit cock-a-hoop about Germany. Wonder who that was.
Must have been Frank.
No.
Agree with Craig?
It's
not a contender? I don't think they're a contender at the moment, no, because we also see a lot of...
How can you say that so confidently about Germany?
Because
the nation that is Germany.
Welcome to the FC show. How can you say it so confidently?
In knockout football.
We've seen a lot of Schlotterbeck over the last 2 or 3 years in the Bundesliga. He's a mistake waiting to happen. He can be brilliant on occasions, but he can also make bad decisions. He's a gambler. We don't fancy Kimmich as a right back. He's good on the ball, but if you get him in 1v1 situations, he can be beaten. So while they're a good side, I don't think they're a great side, and I don't think they'll be challenging.
It's not just looking at Germany, you have to look at the others. Now, if you put them up against the Brazil that we saw yesterday, yeah, I mean, because that's not the best Brazilian side, but if you put them up against France, and I know a couple of years ago they performed very well against France in a friendly in France, played probably arguably one of their best games in terms of their passing. But against them and the likes of Spain, I think it'll be a struggle. I don't think we're going to learn a great deal. You'll only find out about these elite countries and these big players when we get to the knockout, when it really, really matters. So I'm on a level playing field with Germany. We've learned nothing.
Hey.
That wasn't me. That was another bold guy. But...
Welcome to FC, where nobody ever forgets.
No, fair point. Fair point. They have prisoner at the moment against Curacao.
But listen.
You were right, though, Craig.
No. Joking aside, I always felt this with Germany. Didn't expect it with Paraguay today. I thought it would be against one of the more elite teams, with all respect. But that was just, as Jürgen said, there's not much you can add to it. It was poor. And Julian Nagelsmann, you know, he was supposed to be this up-and-coming whiz kid, all these new ideas, you know, from Hoffenheim to, was it RB Leipzig, to Bayern Munich, to the German national team, and his stock is just taking such a nosedive. So, do they have the playing squad of yesteryear? No, but they certainly have enough to be better than what they are at the moment. This was so pedestrian, this game, and I know Paraguay defended well, and I know the US took them to the cleaners in match day 1, but this German team was so bereft of ideas, it was actually quite scary.
Yeah, but it's completely abnormal, you know, because we have a fantastic team as Bayern Munich, leading the Bundesliga with fantastic players. They had a great season, and like we have in Ligue 1, we have Paris Saint-Germain leading the Ligue 1 and showing the example of how you have to behave. And you see the national team of France, you know, following that path. I would have thought that Germany will follow that path. You know, we had Neuer, Kimmich, Pavlovic, yes, correct. Goretzka, and so many others who either are playing for Bayern Munich or have played for Bayern Munich. And we would have thought that the national team will have followed that path and that positive aspect of the game that Bayern Munich is showing. But we don't see that. It's completely different. And why is different? Because I think that the mindset of Nagelsmann is not made as we can see with the coach of Bayern Munich.
What do you mean by that?
But I mean that it's different. It's PowerPoint, it's data, it's maybe, I don't know, we talked about that this afternoon where that guy is a philosopher of football. And sometimes you have to go to singular stuff where it's more simple, where you have to stop thinking too much the football. You have to let the intuitive aspect of every human being in order to play and show your strengths. Those players who play for Bayern Munich know how to play well. Let them play. Don't play Kimmich on the right side. Play Kimmich as a midfielder because he's where he's at the best.
So you don't feel he knew his best 11 heading into today?
I have doubts about that.
Couldn't have done.
Yeah.
Because Jürgen kept mentioning urgency. Leroy Sané is not a player that plays with urgency. If anyone's watched Leroy Sané over the
He's
years,
not a player that plays all the time. He doesn't
Musiala
in
is.
Turkey.
Musiala's your man. So when you're Julian Nagelsmann and you're picking that side, and to Jürgen's point, you want urgency against the Paraguay side, which was the perfect storm for them because they scored first, and they retreated and just went defensive in a very good shape. That's where you want your quality players. But you know, Musiala has to start for Germany. Leroy Sané is not your man if you want urgency. And to Frank's point, it's almost like Nagelsmann's gone, well, Undav scored a couple of goals coming off the bench, so therefore I better start him. You don't have to. You don't have to buckle to the clamour just because he scored goals off the bench, then he has to start. Yes, he's in good form. And then you shoehorn Kimmich into the team because he's your man, he's your captain, he's your leader. Oh, let's just play him right back. You're a coach to make big decisions. If you're gonna play Joshua Kimmich in that 11, you've got to say to Mecha or Pavlovic, you ain't playing today.
But he prefers Kimmich as a right back.
Well, then that's a problem.
And that's a worry.
Of course it is.
And to go back to that brief point about Bayern Munich, who have played, they didn't win the Champions League, but they played some great football. Played some unbelievable football in Germany. But two of the players that played in that team that were at the fulcrum of that are exactly what Germany's missing. Michael Olise and Harry Kane in Jürgen's old position. Match winners. And that's what, you know, Musiala's a match winner, but he's missed a lot of the season with injury. Florian Wirtz has had a very average season at Liverpool. And those two Bayern Munich players have been two of the best players in European football by a stretch. But they're not available for France, for Germany. Yeah. And that's the issue. They don't have players in those positions, or more importantly, players in form. But it didn't look as if they had any leadership today either. Or as Jürgen said, any real fight. It just felt it was all a little flat and accepting, and it certainly lacked guile in the final third. And again, it's not a surprise that they're out, but it is a surprise it was against Paraguay and not in the next round.
A side that the US hit 4 against in the first game of the World Cup. I have to ask about Jonathan Tah, his goal in the 102nd minute. Jürgen, your thoughts? Should that have counted?
I think it should have counted, but obviously you can disallow it. It's absolutely legit, you know, because he's on the goalkeeper. He has a body contact with the goalkeeper. So if a referee then disallows it, that's totally cool. I think that is no excuse at all for Germany, that disallowed goal.
Well, it's light, but the fact that the goalkeeper goes on the floor, you know, maybe push the referee of disallowing the goal because he gets the time to get up, and maybe if he would have stayed up, you know, he would have said nothing.
This infringement by Anton, so I call it an infringement, he stood his ground, is not been given, I don't think, as a free kick in any league in Europe this year. Not one. But we heard, for those that heard the game, Mark Clattenburg, who's working for the host broadcaster here in the US, gave an explanation, I don't know, did you hear it, Don, about a directive sent down from FIFA before the tournament. This is like, hey, we're going to have a rule change before the tournament again, and we may tell you, and we may not tell you, but we'll let you know when it happens, is that if anybody's blocking the goalkeeper, then we're going to give a free kick. But there's laws of the game, and that doesn't sit within the laws of the game. I think it was extremely soft.
Lucky for Arsenal, they changed the rule after the Premier League finished.
I think the goalkeeper was smart. I think the goalkeeper was very smart. He realised it was a tiny little touch. And because the goalkeeper went to the floor, he was then impacted because he couldn't get up and save the Tah effort.
But then you have to ask the question, was he blocked, or did he throw himself to the floor off his own accord?
There are little obstruction.
But that's not the reason why Germany went out.
And that's what Jürgen says here on this one. But
I did hear that the reason, and I don't know if this is true, the reason FIFA have made these calls to the referee was because the Premier League in particular became such a bun fight. And
It was wild.
It's not picking on Arsenal. It's a generalisation. It became such a bun fight at set pieces that they didn't want to see that. But they should have been clearer with that before the tournament started.
No, well said. It's dividing opinion all over social media. Let us know, folks, what you think as well using hashtag ESPN FC. Nagelsmann and his future, asked about it afterwards. This is what he had to say. Quote, "I'm not someone who runs away. This is not the first time this has happened. And there are some things about today that need to be changed. But if the Federation wants me to continue, I'm going to continue. I know the mechanics of football. I know how the industry works. I know a lot of people will want me to leave, but I would love to continue if the Football Association wants me to." So I'm intrigued by this one here. The quote continues when he says, "They've talked to me gently. They comforted me. They're not going to offer me an extension 2 minutes after I lost this match. They're not going to talk to me after a defeat." Jürgen, Nagelsmann's future is what for you?
Well, Nagelsmann's future, he prolonged the contract already prior to the World Cup a couple of months ago. So I don't think it's really necessary to talk about his future. It's really necessary for German football to go into details and talk about this disaster that just happened, you know, in any way, you know, from every game of the tournament. But when I see a team that, for me, from the outside, watching it on TV, is not prepared for a penalty shootout, then I just wonder. This is a it's going into penalty shootouts. I said it before the tournament. If you want to win this World Cup, you gotta go through at least 2 penalty shootouts. So I expect whoever gets on that spot, that this player is prepared for the penalties to take. And I saw a German team the first time in a long, long time that the players were not prepared to take their penalties, which is for me insane. I mean, this is a knockout phase. Knockout phase, it's its own tournament. Group stage doesn't matter anymore. And so there are so many questions to be made and discussions to be made by the German Federation, by the responsible, by whoever loves football in Germany. So I don't think the big question is now if Julian Nagelsmann's contract is safe or not.
See, in his statement there, that more or less sums Nagelsmann up when he said, "I know the mechanics of the game. I wonder if he's got a feel for the game."
Look, if Steve Clarke fell on his sword and there was no expectations for Scotland and he'd signed a 4-year deal beforehand, I don't see how Julian Nagelsmann can't fall on his sword, contract or not, because the Germans, as Jürgen well knows, have... And look, there are more problems than just the coach. However, the buck stops with the coach. And Germany have higher aspirations than... They've had 4 games in this tournament. They beat Curacao. So what? Ivory Coast. They lost to Ecuador and they've lost to Paraguay. That's unacceptable. If you're coaching an elite country like Germany, regardless of whether you have the best core of players that the country have had. We know they don't, but they have players that should be better equipped, more ready, and ready to adapt tactically and whatever, rolling the sleeves, whatever it is, to deal with these scenarios. So I don't see how he can remain in his post with any confidence going forward.
Jürgen?
Well, listen, there's one very important point for every manager on the planet, you know, when he gets measured after tournaments or after a season, is how much did you get out of every single player? You know, did you improve that player? Did you make him a better player? How did that player perform? So now if you go through those 4 games of Germany, you got to make your own calculation and say, okay, you know, Kimmich, that percentage, Manuel Neuer, that percentage. So you give everybody their percentage of performance, the performance that they just gave you in the last 2 weeks. And that's basically... That's the proof of a manager, of a coach, of what he's done now in this tournament. And I remember 2 years ago, everybody was happy in Germany about the European Championship because it was a fantastic European Championship organizational-wise. But Germany lost in the quarterfinals, and all Germany was crying about a handball from Cucurella from Spain. You know, that was probably the reason why Germany went out. But everybody forgot that you had 90 minutes to score another goal. Today they had 120 minutes to score another goal, if now they give Tars goal or not. So, I mean, if you now go into the aftermath of a tournament, then you will go for every single player and you tell me if that player reached his 100% of his capabilities or not. And if you want to win the World Cup, you need your players in the range of 90 to 100%, all of them, if you want to win a World Cup. And it's definitely not the case for Germany.
Well said, Jürgen Klinsmann. The side that did win today, Paraguay, led by Gustavo Alfaro, incredibly impressive in the way they approached it. They got it done in the end, and now Paraguay advanced to play, Frank. I can see it trembling in your boots here. The winner of France taking on Sweden.